Welcome to the Autism Alliance of Michigan's Skill Building Series. AAOM is guided by the vision that people with autism will lead lives that meet their greatest potential. The mission of AAOM is to lead efforts to raise expectations and expand opportunities for people touched by autism across the lifespan. Hello, my name is Candace Peterson, and I am an occupational therapy consultant for AAOM. I want to welcome you today to our webinar on understanding your picky eater and strategies to help them. I also wanted to let you know that there is a handout that can be used to help guide you through this webinar. To get us started, let's talk about what might define a picky eater. According to the SOS approach to feeding, a picky eater has less than 30 foods in their diet, and that is broken down to 10 proteins, 10 fruits or veggies, and 10 starches. A child who eats less than 20 foods, we would call a problem feeder. They may also have few foods from a nutritional grouping, such as proteins, fruits and veggies, or starches. They may be very rigid about food presentation. Food must be cut the same way, or they will not eat a broken piece of food. They may only eat certain brands of food. They may refuse to eat food from a restaurant because it looks different or is prepared differently than food they are used to. They may even be unable to be near food due to sight or smell. So let's talk about some of the factors that might impact picky eating. Sensory processing. If you haven't watched my sensory processing webinar, that webinar will help you better understand your child's sensory systems more comprehensively. Sensory aversions to food often stem from hypersensitivity to taste, texture, temperature, or sight of food. Low awareness in the mouth can also impact a child's comfort while eating food. You may notice some outward signs of sensory sensitivities to food if your child shivers, gags, gets goosebumps, has flushed cheeks, tenses up, or even if your child just turns their head away from food and disengages. Meltdowns can also be a result of sensory aversions to food. Your child may yell, cry, or leave the table. Oral motor skills are another impacting factor. Decreased strength and coordination in a child's mouth can significantly impact his or her ability to bite, chew, and swallow foods. If you suspect your child has significant oral motor deficits, you can talk to your doctor about receiving therapy to address these needs. Medical needs, including surgeries, allergies, food sensitivities, NG or G tubes, medications, and others can impact eating and increase aversion to foods. There are also many social, emotional factors that can affect eating, such as stress, anxiety, and interaction with peers. Lastly, there are many different aspects of our environment that can affect picky eating, and we're going to talk about that more later. So how does this affect daily life when your child is a very picky eater? First, eating can be very social. We like to go out to eat to reconnect with friends or family, or have guests over to our home to socialize over a meal. It can be stressful because a child is unable to participate in meals with family and friends or go out to dinner due to their picky eating. Also, parents have to make separate meals for their child for every meal, and this can take a lot of time and effort. The specificity a child requires may not be something a parent can always understand or satisfy. You may have difficulty locating specific brands of food that your child wants. For instance, if they stop making a certain food or you can't find it at some of the stores that you shop at. Meltdowns, battles, negotiating, or bribing can occur in an attempt to get a child to try foods. Often, the intent behind what may cause these issues is a noble one, in that you are trying to help your child eat nutritious foods or enough calories. Trust can often be lost between parent and child, especially if parents attempt to hide nutrition in foods that their child likes. And oftentimes, there is a lot of frustration between parent and child. Now that we've talked about the effect on daily life, let's discuss some general strategies that might help you and your picky eater. First, you can pair highly preferred foods with newer foods. So for instance, 2 well-liked food with 1 new food. You don't want to pair newer foods that are very stressful or cause your child to have meltdowns. Maybe they might not eat the food, but they're okay with having it on their plate. No pressure. Allow them to explore foods at their own pace. Their trust in your respect of their comfort level will go a long way. They are much less likely to shut down. Eat and explore with your child so that you can model exploring the new foods. Eat the same foods as they do. Explore the foods in other ways than eating. Smell, lick, touch, stir. We'll talk some more about that in a little bit. Make small changes to foods that your child is aware of to help break their rigidity. We tend to be creatures of habit in that we cut foods and prepare foods and present foods the exact same way every single time. Think of all the ways you could present a piece of bread differently. You can cut it into different shapes. You can use cookie cutters. You can leave the crust on. You can take the crust off. If we can present it a different way each time, your child might not be so rigid about how it's presented. Play with food in ways that they value. Visually stim on food. Count, make shapes, make letters, make numbers out of the food. Use the food to color in a picture of a character that they love. Make it valuable to them. Make connections between foods based on your senses. Talk about how foods are the same color, shape, texture, taste, etc. This will help open the door to new foods that have the same qualities as other foods that they already like. Have your child help prepare foods, scooping, mixing, cutting, whatever is age appropriate for them, they can help prepare the food in that way. Now that we've talked about some general strategies, let's get into some more specific strategies and expand on some of the general strategies that we already talked about. So first, we're going to talk about verbal responses. Avoid terms that attempt to define how your child feels about a food when talking about food. For example, just take a bite, you'll like it. This food is just like the other food you like. You should just eat it. You won't like that food. That's gross, isn't it? Instead, you can choose terms that are neutral, descriptive, or talk about what you notice about or are doing with a food. For example, this food is red, crunchy, soft, makes a loud noise when I chew it, round, bumpy, salty. This food is just like this other food. This carrot is crunchy, just like this chip is crunchy. If the child says something like, I don't like this food, you can say something neutral. I hear you. Thanks for talking to me about it. You could also say something like, I want to try this and smell this food. It smells sweet. So in all of those instances, you're either using a neutral response or you're talking about what you observe about a food or what you want to do with the food or what you are doing with the food. In no way are we suggesting the child tries the food or implying what they would like or should like about a food. Now we can talk about play. If your child likes to engage in play with food, all of these strategies may benefit them. We can play with food without even touching it. Just having the food in our space and interacting with it in some way is still really valuable. So without touching, you can do things like peekaboo with a cup or with your hand. You can use cookie cutters. You can use a chopper or stir with other utensils. If we're able to get to the touching phase of interacting with food, there are lots of things that you can do without putting the food near your face or in your mouth. You can visually stim on food by holding it up in the air and dropping it in front of your eyes. You can draw with your fingertips in items like pudding, applesauce, or yogurt. You can play hide and seek inside your shirt sleeve or the collar of your shirt. You can pretend that you have a beard or a mustache, eyebrows, or glasses with foods. You can make shapes, letters, and pictures with food. If you're able to get to the mouth and put food in the mouth, there are a lot of different options here as well. Spitting is so much fun. Spitting into a bowl or spitting at a target, spitting across the room, whatever is appropriate and engages your child. You can kiss. You can do a snake taste with your tongue, bringing your tongue out really fast and bringing it in really fast. You can do hide and seek with your mouth, or you could pretend the food is a toothbrush. Anything that works for you and your child is appropriate. If you're able to get to the point of biting, chewing, or swallowing, there's some options here too. You can bite and spit, bite, chew, and spit, chew slow or chew fast, chew like an animal such as a rabbit, giraffe, dog, etc. You can also add counting. So this might make your child feel better that, okay, I'm just going to do it 3 times, and they feel like that is really manageable and they see an endpoint for that. So those are all different ways that you can play with food at different levels of comfort. And again, we're always respecting what our child is comfortable with and letting them interact at the level that they want to. We can now expand on making connections between foods. Here we're attempting to make connections by describing foods. So here you see some very general examples. Sight, color, shape, texture, size. What else does it look like? Touch, bumpy, smooth, soft, hard, wet, dry. By smell, sweet, salty, big, small, medium. Sounds, is it loud, quiet, crunchy, squeaky? These are all general ways to describe food. So let's take an example. A slice of orange cheese and an orange slice. We already know that these two things are the same color. We can also cut the cheese to be a similar shape as the orange slice. So we can talk about, oh wow, these are the same color, about the same size, the same shape. We also may talk about how they're different. The cheese is smooth, and the orange slice, the outside is bumpy. So we're making connections between cheese, which may be this food that the child likes, and an orange slice, which may be something new. But making the connection between the two foods makes the orange slice not so overwhelming. Oh, wow, it does have some things that are similar to this food that I really like. This strategy is really good for children who have a lot of verbal skills and cognitive skills. Let's talk about another example, an Oreo cookie and a banana chip. We can say, wow, these are both circles. They're both hard on the outside. They're both crunchy. They're both loud when we eat them. They're both sweet. We may have to talk about the differences too. Yes, they're different colors. The cookie has a different texture on the inside. But wow, look at how many connections we made between the cookie and the banana chip. So if the Oreo cookie is the preferred food, the food that the child really likes, we're opening the door to say, this banana chip has a lot of similarities to the cookie. So maybe it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Next, we can talk about environmental considerations. First, neutral packaging. So oftentimes a child can feel very connected to certain foods and the packaging that they come in. This may limit them from eating foods that are pretty much the same from different brands. So we can help them move past this by transferring foods to more neutral packaging in a way that is comfortable for them. Let's take yogurt, for example. Maybe your child only likes yogurt from a purple container. So you can transfer that yogurt into a clear Tupperware container right in front of them. And then they can eat it out of that container. Over time, you can move farther away from them, say on the kitchen counter, and transfer the yogurt into the clear container so they can still see. Hopefully, they will eventually be able to eat the yogurt directly out of the clear container. Then you can buy other brands that are very similar and put them in a clear container as well, and your child will not be as specific about the brands that they eat. This strategy is not meant to trick your child. Just allow them to eat other brands of food that are essentially the same. Seating. We want our child to be in a 90-90-90 position. What that means is that your child's hips, knees, and ankles are all at about a 90-degree angle. If you look at the picture at the top of the screen, that child is in a pretty good 90-90-90 position. You can see her back is all the way to the back of the chair, so her hips are in a good position, her knees are at about 90 degrees, and her one foot is moved a little bit forward, but they are flat on the floor, allowing them to also be at a 90-degree angle. This allows your child to have appropriate postural control, which they absolutely need to be successful in eating, and especially when they are exploring new foods. It may be as simple as you putting a footstool underneath your child's feet to make sure that they're in that 90-degree position and that their feet are planted on the floor. We never, ever, ever want our child's feet to be dangling, because if they are dangling, they are constantly going to be trying to achieve postural control, and all of their energy is going to be spent doing that versus focusing on the food, the social experience, and trying new foods. We also have to think about who is at the table while you're eating. Are you eating as a family and able to model for your child, or are they sitting by themselves? What is the stimulation like in the eating environment? Is it high? Is it low? Is it moderate? What else is going on? Are there a lot of sounds, smells, sights, bright lights? Is it very overstimulating? This can make it more difficult for them to explore new foods. I also recommend that you avoid screens at meal times. If your child is always watching a screen during meals, attempt to decrease the amount they are on the screen in small increments over time. Screens often block our ability to model exploring foods with our child and limit the social experience of eating. I want to thank you so much for attending this webinar today. I hope you learned something that will be very helpful to you and your family about helping your picky eater. For additional information, questions, and resources, please contact the Autism Alliance of Michigan. AAOM is prepared at no cost to counsel, advocate, and connect families to evidence-based care and support, however long it takes. Our navigation program will connect anyone touched by autism to a free, lifelong guide with professional help and answers.